It's Emil Guillermo. Emil, Amok to you. Emil Amok? Yeah, Emil Amok to you. This is Emil Amok's Takeout, my takes on all things considerable. We talk about the news in the good old-timey talk radio kind of way, right? And we just talk about all news. We don't necessarily have we have a perspective. You can tell our perspective. I tell a joke about, no, I can't tell that joke. Not here. But I mean, you can tell my perspective right away. And you know, in the old days of talk radio, people were more comprehensive. But I guess it was around 1989 with Rush Limbaugh that everyone kind of split up, and it was predominantly right wing on talk radio, and the left wingers the left wingers went somewhere. They went Air America, you know, any number of things, but there was usually one, if that many, talk radio hosts who had a left wing perspective. I was on one radio station, and they said, "Look, we're changing tunes. You know, we're going this way, and you're going that way. So goodbye." And I got fired. So this is kind of nostalgic to have a talk radio moment talking about the news. And so today on today's show, that's what we do. We do this Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific. Except on how I took yesterday off because I was coming back from LA, where I did a stand-up show. I was part of a stand-up show. Did my 5 minutes at the Hollywood Improv. I'm going to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about, of course, more on Shane Gillis, because, you know, once you do stand-up and once you know how hard it is to get laughs, you do get a little empathy. So I'm going to talk about that. What else? Oh, this weekend, did you see the NBA All-Star game? Wasn't it ridiculous, the NBA? I mean, I guess when it got to 190, you thought it can't get worse, right? And then they went over 200. And are we supposed to cheer that? It almost seemed like, where are the Harlem Globetrotters when we need them? I mean, no one takes the Harlem Globetrotters really seriously, but when you do, you say, look at their skill. Aren't they great? I mean, because you know it's not a real game. They're playing the Washington, what do they call it? The Washington Generals, and they're kind of like a lay-down team so that the Globetrotters can do their thing. But when you see the NBA folks do it, and they don't take it seriously, and it's like a low skill, well, high skill, low skill, right? And they score, and they play no defense. Like, why? The best thing was the Sabrina Ionescu, Stephen Curry 3-point shootout, which I thought was fascinating the day before. Wasn't quite as enamored of the slam dunk contest as I have been in the past. Maybe it's because the slam dunks are also they're kind of fake slam dunks. You know, they're not the kind of slam dunks you'd see in a game. I mean, maybe a little bit, but, you know, you jumping over some guy's head, and things have to be set up just right. So it's kind of fake. It's kind of a fake thing. But the 3-point shooting contest, you go back of the line to the 3-point line and you shoot, and you make it or you don't. And the person with the most points wins. And Sabrina Ionescu gave Stephen Curry a run for his money. She had 26 points. Stephen Curry had 29. Had to make it on that last rack. But it does show how you have some great female shooters, no matter what sex. And that's why that's a great competition. At some point, the women are going to win that, because they have as much of a chance of winning that, maybe more than any of the other competitions on All-Star game night. But that Sabrina Ionescu, I also like Sabrina Ionescu because I used to live up the block from Miramonte High School, where she went to school. And I just like the fact that that's a real competition. I mean, there's nothing made up, and it was enjoyable to watch, and it only lasted about 10 minutes at most. And that's it. That was All-Star Weekend. That could have been it. The rest of All-Star Weekend you can banish because we don't need it if it's not going to mean anything. If it's all just an exhibition and it's not even as entertaining as a Harlem Globetrotters thing, then I say forget it. Anyway, but Sabrina was cool. I love Sabrina. All right, I'll get to the Hollywood Improv in a bit. I want to also talk about, some stuff in the news. There's some news. I noticed that on Sunday and on Monday, they kept talking a lot about the or actually close to $500 million that Donald Trump is going to have to pay up. He is going to have to come up with it. And this is why this is an important story, because you say, well, God, I mean, if you know a Trumpster, they'll say, oh, they're just picking on him. They're persecuting him. They'll come after you. They're going to come after you next. Well, actually, that's kind of a good thing in the sense that no person is above the law. But here's the thing. The reality is they would come after you before they go after Donald Trump. That was the problem. And this shows, no, they will go after Donald Trump, and that's a good thing. He shouldn't get any kind of special treatment. I mean, he thought he deserved special treatment, so he can fudge, his records about how he does business in New York State. But the importance of this is because his lies got him access to more money. He misrepresented his worth, got a better deal from the banks, and that's something you couldn't have done as a regular person. So you should be very happy that the courts came down hard on Donald Trump, suspended him from doing business for 3 years in New York, his son's 2, fined him over $400 million, but all the other things combined that he has to pay, he's going to pay close to $500 million, $500 million. And that is something we should applaud. He doesn't deserve to be president, not with the kind of attitude where he thinks he's better than you. He's not better than you. And thank goodness we have the law here saying, we're saying no to Donald Trump. Now the question is, will voters say no? One of the hard things about this whole situation is people have to collect from Donald Trump. I think the state will be able to collect, but people like E. Jean Carroll, who was due something like 80, her part in all this is about 90 million, I believe. The fact is, you cross your fingers when that much money is owed, and you hope that you collect. So we wait to see what transpires, but this is a good sign. This is a good sign that our democracy works, that our rule of law works, and we'll see how it impacts the South Carolina primary, which happens later this week, because it looks like Nikki Haley is not going to do it. She says she's going to stay on. She's going to campaign to the last vote. I'd like to see her do better than she is, but I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know why. A little American misogyny. I got an email from the Marianne Williamson campaign. Certainly, I didn't see the news exactly that she had suspended her campaign, but after a couple of dismal results in New Hampshire and Nevada, her campaign has decided to suspend, which is tantamount to ending it. And it's too bad that, number one, they didn't have the money to go on, because if people are interested in a alternative to Donald Trump, or excuse me, an alternative to Joe Biden, got to see all of them. Not just Dean Phillips, who's a professional politician who sort of hangs around. I don't know how serious he is, but he's hanging around longer than Marianne Williamson. I'm just sad that Marianne Williamson is out because she has a perspective that is needed, a female perspective on the Democratic side, and you're not going to have that now. And it's just amazing that, money prevails. Biden just reported he's got like a $130 million war chest to go on. He's in California now, going after the money. He's in San Francisco, Los Altos Hills. He's going to be down in LA. He's going to bring home the money. He's going to need it. But I don't know. I get this sense that a lot of people are they're playing the traditional Democrat game. Joe Biden is top of the leaderboard for now. But I just wonder if that's going to be the final result. Got to get through the rest of the primaries and the conventions, and I hope. You look at all the problems of the world right now, and you think, you think that Joe Biden probably is the best person. I mean, I can't imagine Donald Trump in office again. What he'd do? Well, he criticized or made a comment about the Navalny murder. It was a murder. But he didn't criticize Putin. Who do you blame? He didn't say anything he hasn't said anything about Ukraine that I noticed in the news, except that he's come down hard by being anti-NATO, which is being anti-ally, which is really anti-American. So you consider the top two, and Joe Biden is like a rock. People want to bring him down. I still feel like if you want to look at alternatives, you should have some to look at and to hear, because sometimes those alternatives, they contribute to an overall message of the Democratic Party or of any party, right? When they get together at the convention, they don't necessarily just shut you out. But in the case of Marianne Williamson, she did get shut out, and I think that's sad. I don't know what the answer is, but she did make the case in an email that she sent out to people who are curious about her campaign, that who's going to challenge the corporatists? Who's going to challenge Big Pharma? Who's going to challenge, so forth and so on. I mean, Joe Biden to a point, but not nearly progressive enough for some people. But he may have to do at this point. So Joe Biden, everyone's talking about the South Carolina primary coming up tonight. Tonight's going to be the United States Senate debate in California. I forget where they're having it, but the problem with this debate is it's getting out to people, but the real edge is to the people who have the money to buy the TV ads. So, for example, the people with the most money are Adam Schiff and Porter, Congressman Porter. And Porter has her whiteboard. Schiff boasts about leading the impeachment charge. And you never hear about the third Democrat who's running, who probably will represent people of color far more effectively, far more urgently. And I'm talking about Representative Barbara Lee. And the only reason why you don't see her ads and she has no money. And so if you're a Barbara Lee supporter or prone to support or like Barbara Lee, watch tonight's debate. go to social media about tonight's debate, because share it with your friends, because hers is a campaign that is almost invisible. Hers is a campaign that you don't see. I don't know why. I know why. She doesn't have the corporatists on her side. She's considered too far left. Adam Schiff is sort of the traditionalist. Katie Porter is sort of like number two. Johnny come lately progressive. Among young progressives, fine. But the person who's been through all the battles and has survived and is still there, Barbara Lee, doesn't even come in third in this race. Steve Garvey, the Republican, who is absolutely, totally unqualified as a person, as a politician, totally unqualified. But by virtue of being on the right, by virtue of being a Republican, he'll get some votes. Enough to be third in that four-horse race, and Lee is far behind. And she deserves to be at least vying for second, because the top two run off in the general. We're talking about the race now in Super Tuesday, coming up in March. Top two advance to the general in the fall. Barbara Lee should be in that top two. There's no doubt in my mind Barbara Lee should be in that top two. Watch tonight's debate. It's on NBC. And take clips with your phone, audio clips, make them viral. If you like Barbara Lee, because she doesn't have any money. She's not getting any donations. And the way that she's going to make some headway is if stuff goes viral. So, hence, I think it was last week when she debated in LA on one of the TV stations there. She recommended a $50 an hour minimum wage, which, if you want to just go on what you need, makes sense. $50 minimum wage. But you kind of know that's not going to fly. And if it did, people would hire you for like 3 hours, 3-hour days, and then you wouldn't qualify for benefits, and you wouldn't qualify, they'd pay what they could afford. But it is true, it's very hard to make it on less than that if you have a family of four. I was driving through California yesterday. I went to a Starbucks person. And, I bought a brandy Americano. And it says, do you want a tip? And I said, look, you're going to have to ask Howard Schultz for the extra money. I'm not going to tip you. And the guy said, hey, don't worry. California is bumping up the barista pay to $20 an hour because of the new law. So that's great. But barista is making $20 an hour. That's $800 a week, $40,000 a year. Barely enough for a single person, maybe, but for a family of four, family of three, you're struggling. There used to be when people would compare where you are in class among the classes, the economic classes, they say, oh, that's a teacher fire person. And the teacher's making like 50 or 60 grand. The fire person's making like 110 grand. And you say, oh, that's middle class. Teacher firefighter, $170,000. That's comfortable for middle class in America, unfortunately, which seems outrageous. Some people can't even dream of $170,000 a year. So, but who's talking about this, at the U.S. Senate level? Barbara Lee, and at least talking about $50 an hour, got to hand it to her because she got some blowback. But I think a lot of people just thought, oh, she's not realistic. That's not going to happen. It probably isn't going to happen. But wouldn't you want someone to advocate for you? Someone who looks at you and someone who knows homelessness, someone who knows what it's like to be jobless and homeless, someone who looks at you and says, yeah, I'm going to fight for $50 an hour. You with me? No one else is saying that. That's why I look to Barbara Lee and I say, that's a person who should be in the Senate. Because no one else is talking that way. And we need to move that way if we want to create the kind of equity we want in our American society. Too much inequality in terms of economics. All right, anyway, that debate's tonight. So cash that tonight. All right, so I mentioned that, it's Black History Month, and usually I talk about Black history. I have my favorite story, my David Fagan story. David Fagan, who was a soldier, U.S. Army soldier, fought as a Buffalo soldier, then went to Manila to fight the so-called insurrectionists in the Filipino-American War. I tell that, so I'll tell it. This is just a hint, a tease. I'll tell it again, maybe next week. But the historical thing I want to mention today's February 20th, but on the 19th in 1942, President Roosevelt changed the draft law to allow Filipinos in the U.S. to attain citizenship through military service. If you're in the U.S., he said, yeah, you fight for us, you can be part of the 1st and 2nd Regiment, you'll get citizenship. These are Filipinos in the U.S. Now, let's not conflate the Filipinos who are in the Philippines, who also answered the call, but then they got screwed by the Rescission Act because those Filipinos were part of the USAFFE, the U.S. Armed Forces in the Far East, not the U.S. Army like the Filipinos here. So there's a lot of confusion over that. More confusion now because they've given congressional gold medals to the Filipinos of whatever stripe if you fought in World War II. The members of the USAFFE plus members of the U.S. Army. But the members of the U.S. Army who are Filipino, 1st and 2nd Regiment, they got all their benefits. They didn't get screwed. They got their citizenship. They got all the benefits they wanted. The guys in the Philippines got screwed. USAFFE. But it's February 19th, 1942. That's when Roosevelt signed that order. But then get this. Here's the historical twist. Roosevelt signed that order, and then, actually, it wasn't an order. He changed the draft law to allow Filipinos to sign up if you were living in the U.S., and then you get citizenship if you fought. The order that Roosevelt put through was Executive Order 9066, which ordered the internment of Japanese Americans. This was a kind of like a divide and conquer kind of thing for Asians in America. Because the Japanese Americans, they were economically sound. They were rising up the economic ladder. The Filipinos were working in the fields. Roosevelt said, hey, you're our Philippine nationals. We'll give you citizenship. You fight. Go to the war. And then suddenly the Filipinos, they all joined the army. Because there was no unity among Filipino or Asian Americans back then. None. I mean, they were all kind of like pecking order. Japanese Americans were atop, or along with Chinese, but Chinese were excluded, so they dropped down a bit. The Filipinos were the chosen ones. They were colonized. And as soon as Roosevelt said, hey, Filipinos will make you citizens. All you got to do is fight. Then Roosevelt signed 9066, which in turn tens of thousands of Japanese Americans. That's how the race game is played in America. Terrible. But that's how it's played. So remember that, 1942, that's when Roosevelt changed the draft laws. and signed 9066. You can Google my name, Emil Guillermo, and Executive Order 9066, and see all the different things I've written about that over the years. Sad. It is the law that has given Asian Americans as a group a kind of moral authority. But unfortunately, the reality of 9066 is that when the Japanese were put in camps and left, while there are some instances where people, Asian Americans, well, other people, whites, helped the Japanese Americans, for the most part, it was seen as Asian Americans making sure people knew, Filipinos, Chinese, making sure that people knew they weren't Japanese. They'd have signs saying, I'm Filipino, not Japanese. I'm Chinese, not Japanese. Because that's the way the game was played. We weren't a unified Asian America. And it's sad because it's really thwarted our sense of community, our sense of unity. That was 1940. Here we are 2024. Want to know why we are as fragmented? Historical reasons, generational reasons, immigration reasons. That's why when people talk about our umbrella, Asian America, sometimes it doesn't seem as real because you see these little bits in the history books and you say, wow, this is how they kept it separate. This is how they utilize that time-honored discriminatory tool, divide and conquer. Anyway, it's worth noting on the day, February 19th. Today's the 20th, but the 19th was President's Day, and people say, "Oh, who is your favorite president? Who is the best president?" And a lot of people would say automatically, they would say, "Oh, Roosevelt. Oh, what a great president." I don't know. He did a lot of things that were kind of squirrely. A lot of great things too. I don't want to, you Roosevelt historians, I know. Some great things. But let's not go all the way back to the 30s and 40s. Let's go to Johnson. The Johnson years. LBJ. Civil rights, voting rights. Let's not overlook Johnson. There was a president, and the Republicans are trying to reverse everything he's done. Civil rights, voting rights, immigration. Immigration. There's a picture of Johnson signing that 65 immigration bill. The Hart-Celler Act. And it was so monumental, right? Everyone coming together to sign that bill. It's what made Asian America. And you can't even get Congress together on easy bipartisan things like naming of a post office or something like that. Or maybe that's the only way you get that kind of bipartisan measure. Certainly, we can't help our ally, Ukraine. That's politics today. All right. Shall we turn to, let me talk about Ishmael Reed. I'll talk about this throughout, but on the PETA podcast, I talked to Ishmael Reed, dropping on Wednesday. And he's got a new play out called The Shine Challenge 2024. And I have a smallish role in it. So check it out. Go to nuyorican.org, N-U-Y-O, Nuyorican, R-I-C-A-N.org, and buy a ticket to get your private link to see the show whenever you want for the next few weeks. It's a staged virtual reading of this play. And if you don't know what the Shine Challenge is, Shine is said to have been a black person on the Titanic. the only one who survived. And that became a kind of mythic legend, an oral tradition that was passed down from the teens and 20s and 30s and 40s till today. But somehow, a lot of that has changed. I mean, you don't hear it as much, but Ishmael wondered why, did some research, put together the legend of Shine, taken from 36 lines written by Langston Hughes, who wrote it down after he heard what they called toasts, these ballads that they would pass down orally. Langston Hughes wrote it down. Ishmael Reed created a play. And it's interesting. You'll find that you'll know all about Shine. And the challenge is, how will we pass this down, especially if you're African American, to the next generation? And the reason why I'm interested, or one of the reasons, is because the animals play a role in this. Animals. The animals are the key to justice. How, Emil? That doesn't make sense. How does that happen? You got to watch the Shine Challenge. Go to newyorekan.org, get your ticket. You can get your ticket, get a link, then watch it anytime for the next, I think, 2 weeks or so. It's a virtual reading. And I'm in it. Of course, I play a white guy. So, the newyorekan.org, N-U-Y-O, newyorekan, R-I-C-A-N.org. All right. You know, I do many of these things. I'm doing the Rogue Festival in Fresno. The Rogue Festival, it's me doing my one-man show at the Lotus Room on Olive Street in Fresno. I drove by there yesterday. Place looks good, very intimate. I'll be performing Emil Amok, Lost NPR host, part of the show that I did in New York last year. I'm doing an update and adding some things, Married to PETA and other untold tales from the American Filipino life. There, I'll be there with my gong. And it's on March 2nd, Saturday at 2 p.m., March 2nd at 9:30 p.m. Oh, that's going to be a busy day for me. Sunday, March 3rd at 2 p.m., Thursday, March 7th at 5:30 p.m., and Saturday, March 9th at 5 p.m. So if you're an older person, hey, this is matinees galore. It's going to be fun. Emil Amok, Lost NPR host. I talk about my journey into the media, and it's like it's a one-man show. It's Spalding Gray meets Ferdinand Marcos. You'll love it. Now, as far as the Hollywood Improv goes. All right, so I was part of this show. I did my 5 minutes. I got up, and if I say so myself, I killed. I killed. They responded. But there's nothing like that sort of thing, you know, where you get up and it's just you and a microphone and, 100 people or so, and they're all laughing back at you. You don't know them. It's a room full of strangers, pretty much. They're all drinking, but that's not what made things funny. And the thing about stand-up comedy is that it really is like the crack of performance. I mean, that's what I call it. I call it the crack of performance because it is. It's crack. So I was there at the Hollywood Improv. It's different from my one-man show that I'm going to do in Fresno, March 2nd through 9th, and then I'm going to do in New York, April 5th through 21st at the New York City Fringe. Stand-up is pure crack, the concentrated Emil Amok experience. And here it is. I told jokes about Filipinos, and people laughed a lot, which is great because I'm Filipino. And then someone non-Filipino told a joke where Filipinos were the punchline, and I'll admit, I didn't like it. I heard it, I said, But on the show, people had seen me. And so when that person told the Filipino joke, at least there'd been some balance in the show. You know, racial humor is still a touchy subject today. I mean, and just today, the Supreme Court said that it wasn't going to mess with a case coming up involving admissions to a Virginia school. I believe it was Thomas Jefferson, right? It was challenged. They wanted the Supreme Court to rule and say, no on affirmative action, no on diversity. And the Supreme Court said, no, you're going to have to work it out. We're not going to rule. We ruled on Harvard. Isn't that enough? Basically. And so there's some leeway to allow for diversity, to allow for whatever. But race is still a touchy subject. And that's why it's going to be a curious weekend, this coming weekend, when Shane Gillis hosts the February 24th episode of Saturday Night Live on NBC. And as I've said, hey, is this time for the activists to come out and protest, boycott the show, or maybe just hope that Bowen Yang and Shane Gillis get to mud wrestle for supremacy on national TV or something? Now, that would be kind of interesting. I think Bowen Yang would enjoy that. Win or lose. Shane Gillis, I don't know if he'd want to get that dirty. But if you'll recall, Gillis was hired as a cast member and then fired after some of his anti-Asian jokes were exposed. And that was in 2019. Now, SNL wants to hire him back as to be host after 5 years. SNL announced this more than a week ago. And I always thought, well, maybe they were just going to warn us. Or maybe they wanted to see if there was any blowback. But frankly, I haven't seen any real anti-Gillis buzz, you know? And I think maybe because, we're busy, it's outside, it's cold outside. There's a lunatic with 91 felony counts who could be president again. It's not a beautiful thing. It's not a beautiful thing, Emil. You, Emil, talking like me, that's a beautiful thing. Or maybe Gillis bringing him back is an acknowledgement of the Trump effect. That we've become inured to all the micro and macro aggressions, and perhaps the fear of assaults, verbal and physical, has been normalized. I'm not so sure. And it makes me wonder if it really is time to forgive, See, I think Gillis, who's Catholic, maybe not practicing, maybe lapsed like all the rest of us, but there are 27 million Asian Americans in the U.S. His penance should have been 27 million Our Fathers and 27 million Hail Marys. And I think that means he's still got some time on his knees. Or maybe SNL is setting the standard for bigoted jokery at however many Our Fathers or Hail Marys you can say in 5 years. But shouldn't that be up to those he offended? If you're going to apologize, it's not how I feel about how you feel. It's about how you feel about you and how you feel about me. That's a difference, So I'm wondering, does Shane Gillis get us? If you don't recall what he said, he dissed gays and disabled people, used the R word for disabled people, mentally disabled, and the F word for gay people. He disparaged women by calling them flat-chested bitches. That's what he said. So we got a misogynist, a homophobe, an ableist, and then Gillis's racism toward Asians. About Chinatown, he said, why do the effing chinks live there? You could have just said, why do the Chinese choose to live in Chinatown? But effing chinks, his words. In another instance, he commented on the video game Clash of clans. And, because he's a linguist, he used a mock Asian accent to call it the crash of clans. Not funny. And I tell accent jokes. So back in 2019, I didn't call for Gillis to be fired. I just said we should let SNL know that if you want to build the largest possible audience in a diverse America, you don't go for that kind of humor. Because this isn't about social justice. It's about what's genuinely funny to the most people in a modern America, so that your SNL show can gather the most people to watch. And, you should go above the standard morning DJ also BS, right? I mean, that's where Gillis was 5 years ago. But, his apology wasn't so great back then, 5 years ago. He said, happy to apologize to anyone who's actually offended by anything I've ever said, which is like, hey, if you're actually hurt, I apologize. Otherwise, for the rest of you, let's party, which isn't much of an apology. So Gillis added that he never wanted to hurt anyone. He just wanted to be the best comedian. Okay, yeah, but lazy racist comedy is not risky. What's risky is actually being funny without denigrating people based on race, color, creed, sexual orientation, ability, and maybe just keeping the target on yourself, because self-denigration is always funny. So I did not take a stand 5 years ago to say Gillis must go, Gillis must be fired. I just said, if you're concerned, make noise and let people know what we think, right? And our voices were heard, which actually surprised me, because Saturday Night Live does its own thing. And, I was surprised that they went after him and said, you're out. So here's the thing now. I don't believe in cancellation. I'm a First Amendment absolutist. I do this show because I believe in the First Amendment. I want Gillis to feel free to say what he wants. And we should all know that racist jokes don't demand censorship. They demand debate. You match racist speech with more speech, not less. And a lot has changed since 2019. Gillis has actually become a better comedian. And he targets himself now more than he used to. He doesn't go after Asians. Goes after Trump a little bit. He's funny, making fun of dumb white people, and he's got plenty to choose from. He also finds himself in this new time, and maybe this is why SNL is doing it. The trend now is for corporates to loosen up on or abandon diversity, equity, and inclusion standards. So I think that's the reason why, hey, this is the green light that SNL gets, and now they're bringing the banished Gillis back because, hey, he's become a hot comic. I think what's changed now also is there's a lot more prominent Asian American comedians. Even on SNL, there's Bowen Yang, who's come to prominence on the award scene and movies. Asian American comedians represent, and they talk back for us just by being there. You got comic voices like the Emmy-winning Ali Wong. You've got Joe Coy. People are seeing us. And we don't have to be hurt by what other non-Asian comedians say. We simply can just ignore them and not patronize them. Besides, we got bigger fish to fry. We got fighting for DACA, immigration, fighting for, the anti-immigrant sentiment that's around when Donald Trump says, hey, he wants to be dictator for a day, and that immigrants poison the blood supply of America. We got stuff to fight. No one is moving fast enough on Gaza. AI is making us doubt what's real, what's fake. Well, Gillis is just entertainment. the clown with the rubber knife, right? And when he hosts SNL, we can always watch Netflix. Or if we choose, we can monitor, and if he upsets us, we can exercise our First Amendment rights. We could debate, not cancel, because it's all about more speech, not less. That's the American way. And also, then 5 years, since 5 years ago, I now go on stage. I go on my friends' shows. I seek laughs. I just did this thing at the Improv, Hollywood Improv. I got laughs. The difference when a Filipino makes a Filipino joke, though, right? But I empathize with the task. He's trying to make people laugh. I've also seen a couple of his specials over the last 5 years, and I'll say this. He's funny when he's not racist, but has he spent enough time on his knees? So let's see if Gillis has learned his lesson. If not, the debate continues. I assure you, the debate continues. So where are we here? Oh, here we are. Yeah, the debate continues. If you're going to protest, let me know. Email me at Emil.Amok@gmail, or go to my site at amok.com. Because I just don't get this buzz that he's all that important. It's almost as if maybe 5 years is enough time. I remember when it happened, people were upset. But anyway, Shane Gillis. We'll say I've seen a lot of his stuff over the last 5 years. And I've seen a lot of canceled comedians. I know that Louis C.K. says, oh, well, you're here. I guess you had to come here in secret. I guess, couldn't tell anyone you're here. But, I believe in free speech. And I don't support these guys because I support their stupid views. But as comedians, they're artists. And I think they're worth supporting as I said, if there's something disagreeable, then you debate. Because it should be about more speech, not less. All right. So I think I'm going to put out some of the tape of my improv set out on YouTube, on a YouTube short, something like that. So coming up in the next day or so. But for now, keep in mind if you're near Fresno, I didn't know, are you near Fresno? Man, it was beautiful driving through the heart of California yesterday up the Central Valley because, it was rainy and then not rainy. Rainy in LA and then not. And then I went through Fresno and it should be a fun show. Emil Amok, Los NPR host. For tickets, go to roguefestival.org. roguefestival.org. March 2nd through the 9th. Odd times, of course. Odd times. Mostly matinees, but check it out. All right. Oh, I have to say, because this is around lunchtime for me now. I had a meal at Crossroads. Oh my God. What a fabulous place. If you're vegan and in LA, you got to eat at Crossroads. I'm sorry. There's some other places there you can eat. A little less pricey, but just go there for an hors d'oeuvre at the bar. The calamari, get a couple drinks and a calamari, set you back about $70 or so. But a big plate of calamari. and then you get the 2 drinks. So that's, that's reasonable. And then go off in your business. You don't have to, I think you can eat at the bar, but if you have more time, all the other things are interesting. The most interesting dish I had was short ribs made from eggplant. Eggplant short ribs. The taste was there, and then it just like sort of comes back, and you realize, oh, I'm eating an eggplant. I got it. And Crossroads, tell them Emil and Amok sent you, and they'll say, what? All right, that's it for our show today. Hey, thanks for joining me. Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Live. We're here talking about stuff. Back in tomorrow. We like to do a little meditation because, I got into this thinking, well, I'll do some meditations. I'll do some guided meditations. And then I just, no, they just sleep while I talk. They just meditate as I talk. My commentary is a guided meditation as we seek something out of nothing, as we seek not to strive, but to be, just to be in peace. And I like a little loving kindness meditation because that keeps me from going amok, frankly. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal.